Welcome back to the MAGA Arizona Agenda 2027 podcast. Today, I'm here with Travis Grantham, who's running for Congress from Andy Biggs' 5th District, as Andy is running for governor. So, Travis, what are your thoughts on what we could do at the congressional level to help make housing affordable for the next generation or younger generations?
Great question, Kevin. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. That's an important question. And what I will say about affordable housing, I learned 8 years in the legislature what kind of works and what doesn't, right? I served 8 years. I represented Gilbert and Queen Creek. Mm-hmm. What we did in Arizona at the state level to try to make housing more affordable was we cut regulations. We cut regulations at the state level, which was extremely advantageous. It made the process streamlined. We required certain cities, all cities, counties, municipalities, to have to meet a minimum time requirement to issue permits. If they didn't, they had to provide an actual answer to the applicant as to why they weren't. Those things have helped. Federal level. Different set of rules, different set of influence. I'll tell you what would help a lot: lower interest rates.
Okay.
Now, one thing we're experiencing right now with these extremely high interest rates is people can't afford to buy homes. Yeah. People can't afford the mortgage payment. And once you do the math and you understand how much an interest payment affects, or an interest rate affects your monthly payment, I have an interest on my mortgage right now of close to 3%. That's unheard of now. Yes. And people are having to deal with 6s and 7s, and it almost doubles your mortgage payment. So I think the federal government could work very hard on being responsible stewards of our money, which would in turn allow them to lower interest rates. Maybe if we didn't accumulate so much debt and have to make such high debt payments on on what we're carrying. Those types of things are really where I focus. Put my laser beams and say those are things we could fix. Those are things we should do. I could probably talk for an hour and a myriad of things in the housing world, but those are the areas of expertise I have, and those are the things I have seen drive actual real results.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Senator Mike Lee's bill from Utah to sell excess BLM or maybe even some Forest Service land?
I actually do not disagree with his idea. I think land that is controlled and owned by the government is not doing much good for the citizenry and for our state especially. Now, Arizona has a tremendous amount of federal land. And I, as a steward of it, my family owns and operates a cattle ranch, and we lease some federal land on our cattle ranch. I can tell you that the government is not good at taking care of its land. Garbage is dumped. People are allowed to squat on it, and they leave behind feces and contamination and toxic waste. And the land is not being used for anything, and they kind of want to act like, well, this is for the public benefit. This land is here to benefit the school system potentially, or whatever. It's all a lie. And really, if I could be king for a day, I would take the government out of the land ownership business. Now, what that doesn't mean is it doesn't mean you sell the Grand Canyon. It doesn't mean you sell Yellowstone, right? There are national parks that should stay that way. There are protected areas that should stay that way. But the government does not need to own 60, 70, 80% of Nevada, Arizona, and just hold it in trust and not allow anything to be done with it. So it's extremely frustrating to see. I support his bill. I hope he can get it across the finish line. I would vote for it.
Yeah, I think he had some criticisms. He was trying to address them in a revised bill. He's revising it. Last I heard.
He did, and a lot of them were unfair. And unfortunately, a lot of them were from Republicans and people who like to hunt and like to experience the outdoors, and all those things can still occur. Mm-hmm. Then some people immediately want to bite off on, he's going to sell the Grand Canyon, which is a joke.
Yes.
And but unfortunately, we have a lot of people who aren't smart enough to see through that type of rhetoric, so they actually believe those types of things, and then it makes it very hard to pass bills like that.
Obviously, it has to be some kind of education campaign or something.
Right.
I mean, especially when you get these BLM lands that were never supposed to be public lands. They were just, they couldn't find any buyers from 100 years ago, so the federal government just managed them.
Right.
And then they had this checkerboard pattern where every other lot was private and public.
Or state. Look at the Indian reservations. So those are held in trust by the United States Department of Interior. They're not owned by the Indian tribes. They're not owned by the Native Americans that live on them. They're owned by the federal government. And the federal government tells those individuals what they can do, what they can and can't make a living doing, what they can do with the land, what they can't do with the land, how much water they can use, and they should take all of that land if they want the tribes to have it and give it to them or sell it to the tribes and allow the tribes to develop it, live on it, do with it as they please.
Yeah.
But at least it would put the land into private ownership. And
Yeah.
private ownership would allow for the freedoms that come with owning private property, which is like, I mean, the basis of our society, one of them. I mean, it's such an important thing, and it would solve a lot of problems. As you can tell, I'm not a fan of government land ownership.
No, and it's excessive. I mean, if there was a small percentage like national parks and monuments,
Correct.
that's one thing. But when it owns 90% in Nevada,
It's not smart.
I think it's like 80%. Was it Utah or something like that? And then even Arizona is like 70 or something.
It's a large percentage. Only 13% of the land in Arizona is privately held.
At least some of the land though, because we're the last of the lower 48, we got state lands, whereas Nevada didn't.
Correct.
So we have some
Correct.
more control.
Correct. Maybe if we can't get there initially, maybe a good thing to do would be to turn federal lands over to states and let states decide.
So why not have the BLM turn over their land to the state of
Correct.
Arizona? So here's my suggestion. We allocate federal infrastructure funds based on new housing construction, not previous census population, so that cities that build new housing get rewarded and get the infrastructure funds they need to build the infrastructure they need for all that new housing. And cities that let themselves shrink or stagnate don't get subsidized to do the bad, basically just block development.
Your idea, I think it's a good one. Federal infrastructure funds have been used actually recently to reward some states who agree with the administration in power or do things that the administration agree with, and have been withheld from states who aren't friends of the administration that might be in power at the time. That's wrong. I would compare the idea you have to what we've done in Arizona with school choice. So in Arizona, you can send your child to the school of your choice and your tax dollars go with your child to that school to fund that school. Good schools that are doing their job and educating children well, focusing on academics, cutting politics and wokeism and DEI and all those things out of curriculum, are flooded with students.
Yes.
And guess what's happening to those other schools? Their attendance levels, their population is dwindling. And because of the design of the school choice system in Arizona, more money goes to the schools that are doing a better job.
Yes.
Well, imagine that. They gain students, they gain funding, they gain supplies, they gain infrastructure. And the schools that don't do a good job, that are mismanaged and run poorly, they slowly go away. And that's the way it should work.
Yes.
And when a state's doing a business or running itself efficiently, and that's attracting growth, right? Arizona is a great
Yes.
example. Texas would be a great example. They should be rewarded with federal dollars for their infrastructure that would otherwise go to states that aren't running their states effectively.
Yes, and if you want all that onshoring development, the industry and the housing to support it, they're gonna need infrastructure to support that critical manufacturing we want. And
You
they
are
should
correct.
be rewarded for facilitating that.
You are correct.
But to pivot on your education, there's talk of abolishing the Department of Education at the federal level and allocating the money to the states. And my thought is the federal government should stop micromanaging school districts and instead do something just like the Arizona voucher program, that it gives a block grant to states, but it can only be used for vouchers for parents for education.
Great idea, I agree. Truly, the Department of Education, while it may have been started and dreamt up under the best of idea or intention, has become something it was never supposed to become. And if you truly wanted to focus on our education system and do things that were good for the students, you would allow states to educate their children and you wouldn't launder the money through the federal government. Right now, money goes into the federal government and the state gets a fraction of it back. And what is the Department of Education doing with that money? They're paying staff. They're, in many cases, funding political causes that are not in alignment with our Republican principles, especially. But, you know, they're not doing anything to benefit children. And if they're just going to exist as a massive agency to hand out money to people that they agree with, I would say that's not the design intent of that agency. I believe it's time for that agency to go away. I would support complete dissolution, closure,
Yes.
ending the Department of Education. But if it takes going to your idea first, I'll do that too. Because incrementalism does work, and it is time to see the Department of Education slowly go away.
Yeah, did you know that all the increase in education funding since the Department of Education was created has all gone to administrators at the federal, state, and district level, and almost like a teeny fraction has gone to principals, but like nothing's gone to teachers or students.
I believe it. Yes, I knew it.
So to pivot to the higher education level, there's a lot of federal funding for also higher education, scholarships, student loans. There's also research grants. And then the federal government virtually subsidizes universities through granting huge numbers of student visas to foreign students who pay extra tuition. So what are your thoughts on how to reform and improve the university system?
I think the university system is valuable. I think higher education is valuable. Not everybody needs to do it. There are plenty of trades and high-income earners you could point out that did not go to college. But college does offer some benefit, and I think can offer some people some great skills. Student visas, you know, of course we should allow some student visas to occur. Should we fund our university systems that way? No. Should we exponentially let these universities grow into massive agencies, almost like they've become in Arizona, where they're building hotels and office, you know, complexes and technology centers that they don't even, you know, pay property taxes on, and they start becoming a competition for private sector employers, and I don't think that's wise. Now, offering internships, offering scholarships, offering student loans in the private banking sector, I think those things are all good and okay. You know, I'm a huge proponent of the GI Bill in our country. Serve in the military, deploy in defense of our freedoms, you earn a 4-year degree or the equivalent of it, and we'll pay to send you. Those are good programs. And I think we should incentivize Americans to go get higher ed when, you know, but I don't think it's something that we should try to subsidize to the point that everybody just tries to take advantage of it, right? Because it's free.
Okay.
That's extremely damaging to the system. It becomes too cumbersome. It becomes dependent on too much money. The state university system in Arizona, for example, has grown to quite a behemoth, and they always ask for more money. They come to the state government every year and say, we need 30 million for this, we need 50 million for this, we need 100 million for this. And they're doing things and opening schools and employing staff. Not always the most beneficial thing, you know. We have some schools in Arizona that we could probably do without. But I think, kind of back to your point, the higher education system is going to exist, and it needs to exist. But I believe there are things we can do to kind of contain it inside of its box. And this kind of goes to a larger problem. You know, government doesn't know how to do anything but grow.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when you start something, and again, you have well-intended purpose, it often can't just stay there at that size. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it goes into things it never was meant to go into. We're there with higher education, so I think it's time to rein it in a little bit.
It's time to trim and weed the
It is.
university
It is, absolutely.
Should we convert a bunch of money from universities and colleges to trade schools to build, because we have probably too many university graduates, especially in useless degrees, and we have a real shortage of skilled tradespersons, and that we really need for defense complex and onshoring and all these other, and infrastructure, housing, all these things.
Yes, teach kids to weld, teach them to cut hair. There's a myriad of things that are trades, and that shift is happening. I mean, you know, we have high schools now in this state where you can go learn a trade and still earn your high school degree. And there's high schools where you can go earn your high school degree and learn no trade, and it's more focused on academics. But I mean, we have high school students now graduating with a high school diploma who come out licensed to either weld or maybe work HVAC or be a licensed plumber. Trades that earn really good money, more money oftentimes, especially in their beginning years, than the college graduates are earning when they go get their first job. So I think a focus on the trades is huge. I think we should do it. Yes, we need more people who are willing to go out and get their hands dirty and do those jobs than we do people sitting behind glass windows and high rises. But I think focusing on those skills, those trades, would be huge. And I think colleges and universities should look into that. High schools are already doing it. And
Community colleges, etc.
Absolutely. And we have community colleges here now that can give you a 4-year degree.
Cool.
That's another thing we passed in this state and enacted in the law, and I think it's good.
One of the big impediments to building housing in Arizona is you have to have a 100-year assured water supply. And unless we get additional water for housing, we can't build any more housing. And supposedly all the water in the Colorado and other rivers is already allocated. A lot of it to agriculture, and a lot of the agriculture is export crops. So what are your thoughts on bringing in water for housing? Is it reallocation? Is it building new aqueducts or desal? Or what are your thoughts on making water available for housing?
So I'm a huge fan of the desal idea. The technology exists now where we could effectively and efficiently desal water from either California and pipe it into Arizona, or the Baja of Mexico and pipe it to Arizona. And I think that's a great idea. I wish we were doing it now. Hopefully we're doing it in the future. Other countries do this, by the way. This isn't new. Like, Israel does this. They desal a tremendous amount of their drinking water. Arizona, though, needs to focus first on what Arizona needs to survive. So if we're going to deal with limited water, let's focus on Americans, Arizonans, the citizenry here in this state. And then we can talk about things like exporting crops to Saudi Arabia to feed their cattle herds, right? Or, I love it that we grow a lot here, but maybe we should focus on growing that stuff for domestic use if we're going to be short of water. Now, are we short of water? Well, we are becoming short of water. The state population is growing. We are taking water off the Colorado River based on levels that were figured up 50 years ago, roughly. And that allotment and that compact needs to be revisited. California gets the most water off the Colorado River. And a lot of their water bypasses their state and goes right out into the ocean. And Arizona doesn't get any of that water. And the reason California doesn't say, hey, Arizona, why don't you take the water we're not using, is because if they do that, they don't get the water the next year and the next year and the next year, and they can see value in that water, and they might want that water someday, and they don't want to reward Arizona, and they don't want to give up their water. It's almost like government budgeting. If you don't spend it,
you'll lose it.
They are currently negotiating that compact amongst the western states, and it may not get agreed upon. And if it does not get agreed upon here in actually a few months from when we're doing this, the federal government will step in and do it for the states. Now, with President Trump in office and his Secretary of Interior, I'm a little more comfortable that might be beneficial to a state like Arizona, because they're going to look at it logically and say, okay, California, if you're washing water away
and you have the whole Pacific Ocean,
and you have the whole ocean, and Arizona's a desert that's landlocked.
Inland.
Yeah, perhaps we will give Arizona a bit more of the Colorado River allotment.
Until California desal.
Pull yours back.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a myriad of things that have contributed to this. Wacky environmental laws, right?
Yes.
Trying to protect some smelt or a turtle or a lizard or a squirrel or whatever they come up with this time of, they'll claim that water flow has to be at a certain level for that. And it sacrifices water for us. We're living beings also.
Yes.
And I always feel like we as humans have to take a backseat to insects and to other mammals. But I think the smart thing to do would be to revisit those allotments and supplement that revisit with things like the desal solution. And I got to tell you, the tribes have a lot of water under their tribal lands too. And we don't have access to a lot of that water. There's a lot of water in the ground in Arizona.
So 3 thoughts on that. I've been looking at this myself. One, the easiest and quickest thing to do is there's brackish water reservoirs, aquifers underground in Arizona.
Correct.
They're not as salty as the ocean, but they're too salty to directly use. However, the cost of desalinating is way less than ocean water, and we don't have to ask anybody's permission. It's underground here in Arizona. So that would be one solution. Another is if we could get LA and California in general to desalinate for their own needs, because they have the Pacific Ocean right there. Why should they pump water from the Colorado over the mountains to the coast in LA to a beachfront house when they have the Pacific Ocean right there?
Right.
And then the third point, real quickly, is that Denver actually gets a bunch of their water from west of the Rockies in the Colorado River tributaries and pumps it over the Rockies or through tunnels through the Rockies to Denver. So they could get water from the very plentiful Missouri or Platte or Mississippi River just for their own supplies and let that Colorado River water be for the southwestern states that really need it, or even western Colorado.
I agree. The environmentalists, again, though, have struck on the desal side of things because, believe it or not, they will say things like, well, if we're going to pull ocean water out of the ocean and then put very salty water back in, we might hurt some fish or something close to the shoreline, which is ridiculous. So there, you have, I love the term degrowther, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So you could use this word in a lot of different areas or examples of things that go on, but degrowthers don't want to see things like desal succeed. They want us to be restricted on how much water we can use. They want to tell you how many showers a day you can take. They want to tell you what type of grass you can have or not have in front of your home.
How much electricity,
Absolutely.
how much fuel.
They want to control it all.
Anti-nuclear, even though it's clean.
They do. So what do if you want to feel that way and you want to convey that upon other individuals? You come up with reasons. Well, you can't do that because you're going to injure this wildlife, or you can't do that because you're going to damage this waterway. And it's unfair and it's untrue most of the time when they do this, but they do it in the name of trying to control people and keep them from being able to advance economically. It's quite sad.
And I happen to know that if you built the desal, like I forget they don't call it brackish, they have another term for it, but the waste salt, super salty water, if you put it in a pipe down to the deep depth of the ocean off the continental shelf, there's almost nothing alive down at the bottom of the ocean. It's basically a desert down
Right, it is.
Anyway, another thing we need to make life better for young adults and the whole economy is cheap, plentiful, and reliable energy. We need, both fuels, fossil fuels, and electricity. Right now, Governor Newsom in California is trying to, or allowing the shutdown of refineries, which supply half of Arizona's refined fuel supply, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel. There's also the huge electric demand from onshoring, population growth, and AI. Your thoughts on energy policy?
Drill, baby, drill.
Yes.
I really do believe that we need to have a domestic energy policy that produces all our energy and more than we need right here at home. So we should be producing throughout ANWR, Alaska, and drilling, and we should have refineries in the state of Arizona. We do not have. That's one reason our gas is more expensive than everybody else's. A lot of people don't realize we don't have a refinery here. California has refineries. Arizona does not. I mean, think about that. I'll tell you one outside of that realm with the crude oil, nuclear power.
Yes.
There should be a nuclear power plant at minimum one in every state.
Well, with the small modular reactors, you can put them almost everywhere.
Correct.
According to economic analysis I've seen, if you take a closed coal power plant and you swap out the coal power with small modular reactors, the thing that takes the longest to build a power plant is actually the transformers and getting the grid connected, permits, all of that.
Correct.
If you just swap out the generator and just hook up to the same grid with the same transformers, you could do that lightning fast. And then one other point is military bases should have small modular reactors so they're energy independent and cannot be cut off by sabotage of the grid.
I agree. Nuclear power is by far the safest power source out there, the most efficient.
Navy's been using it for.
They have it in ships, and we've had power plants for decades now that operate safely, and thank goodness we have Palo Verde here in Arizona. Yeah. America is producing more energy now under President Trump than it has produced ever before, and we're a net exporter now. We export. So we actually,
California.
it's great.
Yeah.
But that being said, some states are exporting to other states. Some states are not completely self-sufficient.
Maybe reservations could use their independence to do it.
Absolutely, if they were allowed. But again, you go back to the land ownership issue. Reservations, Indian tribes don't own their land.
But if the federal government allowed tribes to say, we're going to be energy independent, we're going to build our
It'd
own.
be wonderful.
Yeah.
But think about how awful it is what we do to them. Think about what we do to the Native American population and the tribes in general. They're allowed to build casinos, but they're not allowed to build maybe a power plant and sell that power to the rest. Well, it's nonsensical. So that's what we want them to focus their energy on. Gambling.
But didn't we? Well, I guess it's the federal or state government shut down the Navajo power station on the Navajo reservation, which was coal, but still.
Yeah, Obama started the war on coal.
No.
That's a product of it. Continuously increase emission standards to the point they can't afford to burn coal.
Yeah.
That's what they did. That's what the government does.
And it reduced our energy reliability, availability.
Absolutely,
and
it
increased
does.
cost.
It does, and that plant is likely going to go away. The plant adjacent to it is going to convert to natural gas. I love natural gas is a great source of electricity, by the way. So we should build more natural gas plants. Those are fine too.
Okay.
There's solutions out there, but again, bureaucracy, environmental law, regulations, red tape, those things all get in the way, and they prevent a lot of this progress from ever happening. And that's truly why. If you want to come back to the core issue that I believe in, that affects so many of these things, you got to shrink government. You got to keep it at bay. It needs to stay contained in the smallest box possible.
Yeah, you need to shrink the regulations and the staff that enforce and implement them so that they cannot be quickly regrown.
That is correct.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on transportation? We have a highway trust fund that's kind of running out of money. We have all these needs for transportation infrastructure improvement, especially for onshoring industry, building housing. You know, Interstate 11 is a big issue, but it's unfunded.
So oftentimes roads are paved with tax dollars for adjacent privately owned lands. A lot of people don't know that. I mean, obviously we pay gas taxes and things that are funding our roads too, but again, back to government land ownership. If the government's going to own all this land and lock it up and not allow anybody to use it for anything, it's never going to generate any revenue, and it's never going to help us pay for things like the highways that run through those lands. Driving to Las Vegas is a perfect example. You bring up I-11. A lot of folks want to bypass what's US 93 or US 60 by building a new interstate that runs north and south. I understand it. The question becomes who's going to pay for it, right? Now, the federal government, we're already broke. We're already $37 trillion in debt. Our interest payments are now exceeding our defense budget on a yearly basis. I don't expect our federal government at any point in the near future, maybe in the next decade even, to step up and be able to just say, hey, let's build an interstate out in the middle of nowhere. You know, it might be a good idea, might not be. But what states need to start doing is, in my opinion, is focusing on, when we have surpluses, spending that money on infrastructure that matters. State Route 24 in Queen Creek is a perfect example. There's been so much growth here. There's really no highway out of this area. It takes surface streets to get to one, and it sometimes takes a half an hour to go from some of these areas just to get to an area that...
The Santan Valley, they have no freeway to get to. They have to drive on city streets through Queen Creek to get to 24.
Right.
The freeway that's supposed to serve the Central Arizona Parkway, again, is unfunded. So here's my thought on how to solve that, because I've been doing my own research. There was a way we did it before, 100 years ago. Do you remember the Transcontinental Railroads and the land grants?
Yes.
If we have all this state land and federal land that's just sitting there empty, why don't we say to these private developers and infrastructure builders, you can build your own road, privately funded, built freeway extension, and you get all the land around it, just like we did with the Transcontinental Railroad over 100 years ago.
Right.
You can develop it. You get permission. If you build the infrastructure that increases the value of that land, you get to capture that increased value.
I think it's a great idea. It worked to develop the West and the railroads, like you said, 100 years ago. It's definitely an option. You know, again, I go back to regulation, right? I mean, it gets boring, but it's true. I watched a highway widening project up US Highway 93 take place for the last several years, where they're widening it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And environmental groups were out there putting ribbon in little dried up washes and streams saying, oh, this is a U.S. waterway. And then it would take 2 or 3 years to do an environmental impact study, which cost $250,000 and paid some engineer and some surveyor. That stuff happens times 10 on every project that occurs throughout the entire country. That needs to stop. You know, there also used to be a day when you could build a road efficiently and quickly and get it over with, and then people were able to use it. We've kind of created a scenario now where there's a whole cottage industry built around obtaining approval to build a road. And you know, we got to get bureaucracy out of the way. You got to stop that from happening. It's consuming a lot of our tax dollars.
I know, because I've been in the industry. I'm a traffic and transportation engineer, and I've seen my projects sit on the shelf forever because they call it paralysis through analysis. They keep restudying and alternatives and mitigations, and for decades before they ever build anything, and the cost goes way up. Another issue is a lot of the over-regulations at the federal level. Utah got fed up and said, fine, we're not going to take any federal money anymore. We're going to tax ourselves, and we can build 2 or 3 times the infrastructure at the same cost if we just do it at the state level with lower regulations.
I agree. Sadly, you're still paying a federal gas tax. You're still paying things in Utah that they can't get rid of. Where's that money going? Now, if it comes back to the interstate system in that state, great, but it doesn't always find its way back.
Should we look at any kind of taxes? Currently, electric vehicles don't pay the gas tax, so they get a free ride. Trucks tend to do way more damage to the road than any other vehicle. Should they pay another higher toll fee? And what do you think about private toll roads or tolling public roads in order to fund improvements or maintenance?
So I'm personally not a fan of toll roads. I don't like them.
Yeah.
But what I do like is everybody who is going to use the road pays their fair share. And one thing we do have going on right now is electric vehicles aren't paying their fair share, and they're using the road as much as the gas vehicles are. Their tires are beating up the pavement or the concrete as much as the gas vehicle are.
Actually, sometimes they're heavier because they're
Correct.
heavy.
Not sometimes, they are heavier.
They are.
Their battery
More
packs
damage.
make them way more than a conventional gasoline powered vehicle. That does more damage to the roadway over time. So I've never wanted to, nor will I ever vote for a tax increase. I believe the government already takes in too much money. And I mean, my registration fees are ridiculous on my gas powered vehicle. It's, you know, close to, I think when it was new, $1,000 a year, and it goes down slightly from there, but it's still a horrendous amount of money every year. And electric vehicles are paying nothing. And it's nonsensical because electric vehicles are consuming our roads just as much as the gas powered vehicles are. And we should not be incentivizing people to buy those cars and not have to contribute to the roads that they're driving on. So my solution would be to lower everybody's fee, but increase the fee on electric vehicles.
So no net increase
even
in
it out.
taxes, but redistribution from fairness.
Even it out.
Here's another category: immigration. You know, President Trump is trying to get rid of all the illegal aliens, all the visa overstays, the legal immigrants who commit crimes, all those things. Then there's the issue of the H-1B visas. Do we cut that back, and how much, and charge a fee, higher fee? But there's also, we seem to have too many of those kind of people, but then not enough skilled tradespeople. Should we expand the skilled trades visa, at least temporarily, until we can get more Americans trained on those skilled trades? And then, you know, have a background check on these people, so we're not letting in potential terrorists. We get people who are more want to become Americans, assimilate and become Americans. Or temporary, they work for a few years and retire back home to their home country.
But we should. And you know, it's ridiculous to think there will be no immigration. There's always going to be immigration. There needs to be immigration. And you do need to bring in certain skill sets from time to time, and you need to supplement. And America has to get better at equalizing that rule so that everybody doesn't just get to intrude on and stay in our country, which continuously hurts our people that do come up, get that training, because historically foreign labor is cheaper. They can make $100,000 a year here and send it home, and it's like making $500,000 a year there, you know, and that's fine. And I think we should have some of that and benefit some of those folks, but definitely has to be controlled numbers, and it has to be done in moderation.
So one of the things that's a problem for the world, America's not as bad as the rest of the world, but it's a problem globally. is the falling birth rates. Americans find it too difficult to get married and start a family. And can we offer tax cuts to help make marriage and family more attractive and affordable for young adults? Where we have a higher child tax deduction, we offer a marriage benefit instead of a marriage penalty, we give maybe some student debt forgiveness for military service, which you already do, and also for getting married and having children.
Yeah, I think all of the above is good to look at. We do have a population problem with low birth rates looking forward, and it's upsetting because that's kind of a problem that exists in our culture with not enough people wanting to be married and have families and raise children, and I wish more people wanted to. I think tax incentives are good. I do think it's good to incentivize people to get married. I think it's good to incentivize people to have children. I'm always very skeptical, though, again, of a government program. Because while it sounds good now, it may look good on paper, and it's actually well intended, I can't even fathom where that might go in 10 or 20 years. Would you have a cottage industry of people just having children and getting married because they, start paying for it? I mean, that wouldn't be good.
Well, that's why I'm saying a tax deduction or
Yes,
cut,
yes.
not the Canadian program where you get paid to have children.
Correct.
So it only encourages people who are working and earning an income to have kids.
Yep.
It doesn't encourage welfare recipients to have a dozen kids.
Yeah, as long as we're drawing a very clear line there, I think it's a good idea. And I do think those types of programs are needed, and I think we better start looking at them sooner rather than later, because we are going to suffer a population collapse, and it's not going to be good.
So why are you running for this office now? Why are you the best candidate? And what is your plan for when you get in office in 2027?
Well, I actually was planning on taking a little bit of a break. I had been in the Arizona legislature for 8 years, 4 terms. We are term limited in Arizona, and I'm a term limits guy. I like term limits.
We need it for Congress.
We need them everywhere. When Andy Biggs announced he was going to run for governor, I wanted to make sure there was not a void in our district, because those are tough shoes to fill. What's my platform? My platform is less government, lower taxes. I try to really keep it simple. Obviously, a secure border. There's 50 things I could talk about, but I got to tell you, the only way you can shrink government is to cut off its blood supply.
Funding.
And its blood supply is money. We've done it in Arizona. I want to do it at the federal level. We can have a secure border. President Trump has proven that, and I would say it's secure now. I looked at just last week, the number of getaways was 0. 2 years ago at this time, or even a year ago at this time, we were dealing with tens of thousands of getaways, sometimes on a daily or weekly basis. It's terrifying because people are flooding into the country. We don't even know who they are. So, I really have enjoyed in the Arizona legislature trimming the fat, stopping government. I like fighting those battles. I'm good at it. I've won them more than I've lost them. And I want to see fighters go to Washington. I want to see people represent this district, which is one of the most Republican districts in the country, and a very Republican district just in general, have a true fighter with an actual resume and a scorecard and a background that's able to do the hard work and get results done. I'm not going to say there's not others out there who could do it, but that's why I threw my name in the ring. And if people want to check out my website, granthamforcongress.com, look me up on social media, Travis Grantham. I'm on X, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm all over the place, and it's me posting. It's not a hired help. So take a look, ask me questions, shoot me an email, I'll answer.
Thank you for being on the MAGA Arizona podcast today.
Yes, sir, Kevin. I look forward to being back.
Okay. Thank you for watching MAGA Arizona Agenda 2027 podcast today. Our interview with Travis Grantham, running for the 5th Congressional District in Arizona. Please like and subscribe for future episodes. Thank you.